Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for Dadbod to Daddy transformation vlog, and of course we are still power building with this, so we started today's glute and hamstring day off with conventional deadlifts. And I'm going back to the stiff bar for a bit, mainly because I feel like my grip just quite frankly needs the work, and it's actually harder to break it off the floor. So if we're going to use it as a hypertrophy tool, I'm going to go ahead and do that. And that's the thing I'm noticing. Like, I really do need the extra grip work. It's one reason I started adding the forearm work and stuff back in to get the grip caught back up. But the deadlift for me has always been a phenomenal hypertrophy tool, and there were times when I went months and months where the only real posterior chain work I did was lots and lots of deadlifts, and I had big thick glutes, hamstrings, calves. So again, let's just run with it. If we're going to discuss using the basics and then filling in with supplemental work, which is really what the Dadbod to Daddy program is about. It's about coming in doing the really heavy hard work for people who have a very, very strict schedule, but then getting sexy. We do all this big heavy work. We use it to get thick efficiently, and then we fill in all the gaps with isolation work, okay? Up to and including forearms, calves, biceps, whatever we need to do. So for me today, I went ahead and just ramped up to my 500, and quite frankly, that felt heavy enough. And then I decided to just do some work sets with 455, and I feel like these will improve pretty quickly. So I just did some triples, and then on the last set I'm like, let me see if I can just grab a fourth rep. And as I work more and more deadlifts back in, we may start working in some sets to failure, working in some rest pause, because again, the deadlift does so much in terms of what it brings to the table. And again, this is one of those cases where all these people will argue hypothetically, oh, well, the deadlift is not this great hypertrophy exercise. You know, they'll make these claims, evidence-based people, because they're extrapolating other data that's really incomplete, number one. But in the real world, it's done extremely well. And when it has been studied in the lab, the only major hypertrophy study where the deadlift was incorporated, the deadlift caused the most muscle growth of any exercise. So what more can you say? People say, well, we don't have enough data. I agree. But all the data we have is 100% one direction, and it very much matches what you see even in pro bodybuilding. Now, I think the issue with it, though, is when you see a lot of powerlifters doing a lot of sumo, doing a lot of other stuff, and they're not really pushing any serious work sets. Maybe on the deadlift, it's a little bit different. And I think people expect it to grow things that it doesn't always grow. Okay. But that felt like some quality work. I felt like I got a good training stimulus from it. I want to keep rolling with doing a little bit more deadlifts now that my volumes are more moderate. I want to keep the flow of deadlifts in with the theme of this training style. So afterwards, I don't really need a lot of other stuff. So what do we focus on? Core, reverse hypers, neck. Now the neck training is kind of its own thing. I've already noticed after a couple weeks of quite a bit of discomfort, the neck training is helping me already. All right, the crick in my neck is like 95% gone. The headaches and everything are gone. It's just something I've noticed is that when I do not do the neck training and I go too long without it, I just sleep wrong on my neck, on the pillow wrong one time, and then I'm in pain. But whenever I'm doing neck training, I will make that note. It does help. And we can argue about aesthetics or whatever all we want. I think that's overhyped with that. But when it comes to functionality, there's something to be said for neck training, particularly those extensions, quality of life, the way that we sleep, helping with concussions. So anyone in a contact for a fighting sport, this is a no-brainer. Right? And it just doesn't take that much to add it in. Plus, I've always seen arguments from Louis Simmons that it will improve your deadlift lockouts. But let's come back over and talk about the Dadbod to Daddy. Would having a little bit more neck, if we're really trying to go for that look, would it be a bad thing? I don't think that it is. Just something to think about. So then what's up with the reverse hyperextensions? I'm doing these really light. I had to adjust my machine because of the lighter plates. I put some spacers in there on the last set because it was making a lot of noise, couldn't get it right. And then I got it to where it's working really well with those single plates, finally. So I just did these to failure. I took these and tried to do them as controlled as possible, especially as it started getting difficult. And I didn't count reps. I have no idea how many reps I got other than it was 30 plus. Didn't count reps. I just did them until it started burning, and then I try to go stricter and stricter as it starts really burning until I go to do a rep and it just doesn't want to move, right? I just feel it give out. And that's what we did, so 3 sets to failure. So on the deadlifts, not counting the training max, we did 3 work sets. 3 good quality work sets. And I felt everything on those. That's the thing, when people say, well, what do you feel in your deadlifts? I feel a lot of lat, honestly. But really, I get a pump in my traps, my calves, glutes, hamstrings, everything. Okay? Everything. And that's one reason I say, the deadlift is just an all-around mass builder. And, people have always noted that for me. They were saying, man, you're always so thick from behind, but look at what you guys have seen me deadlift and look at the deadlift volumes I've done. I think it's a factor. All right. Neck work, of course, there we go, getting into this spot. Not the most flattering position. But you know what? I'm getting lean enough. I'm getting lean enough at this point that it's, actually not that bad. Not even worried about it. On these, so one of the things I do notice that I don't like with this cheap harness I'm using, occasionally getting into the position it shifts and you can't always get it right, get it lined up the way you like. That does happen occasionally. I noticed it even on the last set. But all of that aside, once we got it working, it works pretty good. I find I'm taking with these, it takes about 12 to 15 reps for me to pretty much reach failure. And some of them feel a lot wonkier when I'm doing them. And then when I look at the footage after, I'm like, wow, that looks way smoother than it felt. So just kind of a funny side note with the harness. But yeah, so really training max on deadlift, 3 heavy sets of deadlifts, 3 sets of strict reverse hypers to failure, 3 sets of neck extensions. It's 3 good exercises, 3 sets plus a training max. Then we did some abs, right? Finished up with some abs. So I think all the lower days we'll always do at least 1 set of hanging leg raises. I do crunches and stuff a little bit off camera here and there, but I don't think at this point I need that many of them because I'm doing enough big standing movements. If I just come in and make sure that we do some extra ab work every week, we don't need to overtrain our abs. We don't need all that excessive volume. We don't need any of that stuff. And again, I feel like that's a topic of conversation that people need to understand further also when you are an advanced lifter and you're not using gear. I think there's something to be said for understanding that not all of your muscle fibers are going to grow anymore. That is relevant in the context of what we do with our training volumes. It's very, very relevant. Okay? Versus something like an intermediate. And I think that's one of the biggest shifts, from getting more and more advanced from, say, the intermediate phase, is knowing that you really only have certain muscle fibers that are going to grow at that point. And that is supported in scientific literature. All right, so there's my last set of neck extensions, and then we did 1 set of hanging leg raises to fatigue, and then called it a day. So I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys and gals next time.